Hey guys, Akio Murasaki here. As you've probably noticed from some of my previous videos and also when going to social media, when going to YouTube, the gaming industry is not in a good place. In fact, the AAA gaming industry is in a terrible place. We have studio closures, we have games flopping left and right, not meeting their quotas, not meeting their even expected audiences, and game companies, game studios are very puzzled why this is really the case. How are we making all of these amazing games like High Guard, like Marathon, and people don't want to be really playing them? Oh my god, are these the hateful gaming trolls, online that are simply being mad that we're not making chod games specifically for them? Or is there a bigger problem with the way games are designed, with the way games are marketed in general? And I find this article extremely telling because it falls into this interesting category where they're trying to point out that there is a possibility to expand the current gaming audience with more girls. Yes, that's basically with more ladies, with more women. That's basically what this article is trying to point out. And I think this article is a horrendously good example of why the gaming industry is failing on its face. We're going to be talking about statistics, we're going to be talking about corporate interests, and a general kind of layered, I'm just going to give like a fairly layered, fairly nuanced take on this so that you people understand where I'm coming from and exactly where, kind of from like a broader understanding from like a lowest level, highest level, where the problems really are. I know a lot of people are talking about this, but not a lot of people really kind of understand, I would say, especially people in the corporate world, and I wish please to watch this video to finally understand where the problems are. And no, please do not follow the advice in this article because it's absolutely horrible. TLDR, you cannot force your audiences into existing products. That simply does not work. Please stop, get some help. But anyway, let's go through the article. Female players are an overlooked opportunity for growth in the industry. Research firm says. If someone says overlooked opportunity, you can almost guarantee this is one of these super corpo high rollers consulting firms that just wants to grift. They want to sell you the consulting product so that you buy more of their services, and in the end they're just pushing bullshit. And how do I know this is the case? Because I've read the article. There is certainly potential to expand the overall number of female gamers, it suggests, as in that company here. So what do we have here? I think one of the first paragraphs, it's kind of quite hilarious because what they're trying to do, maybe I should take a few steps back to kind of illustrate the problem here. The corporate world, there's a couple of things that are certain in the corporate world. Number one, investors want they want profit return. They want to get return on their investments. They put a lot of money into the product. Some of it is going to make money, some of it not. It needs to average out across the entire portfolio into a net gain. That's basically what they want. Now, the companies are the ones delivering that profit. But how do you even understand if you will get profit? Well, you look at statistics. Investors are really fluent in statistics. They're really fluent in understanding curves and stuff. But unfortunately, they're not very fluent in understanding target demographics and understanding what the average consumer, because they're simply not average. I'm sorry, they have yachts and multiple houses and villas. They are simply not average people. They do not understand the average Joe and what kind of game the average Joe or the average Joess wants to play. And this is where the consulting firms come in. Now, the problem is that the consulting firms have two objectives. One is making money, so they want to sell the product, which is the consulting, quite obviously, duh. And what has been the case in the last 10 or 15 years, social justice. So they also have a social political goal. In this case, it's making sure that there's more and more women in gaming, which again is their goal. I can't blame them for wanting to have some interests in furthering their own personal agenda. That's completely fair. But they need to be honest about this, and they're not. Mistake number one. Now, mistake number two is misusing the data to paint a picture that is not really true. Now, I'm saying misusing the data. I cannot, again, be 100% certain about the malicious intent, because it might simply be that they are so fundamentally unaware of what the data really shows, despite of them having the data, showing the data, and producing the data. But that is really the case. So I cannot, with 100% certainty say it is malicious intent that they're going with here, but there are clearly these two goals: selling the service, furthering social political goals. Now, this first statement here falls flat, falls on its face almost instantly when you look at the statistics. Lo and behold, female players represent 48% of the gaming population, around 922 million players across 21 markets. Ampere, that's the company we're talking about, says. But at such a large scale, this 4% difference, I'm not quite sure what they're talking about here, the 2 to 50 and then the other side of 2 to 50, I guess. But if you want to go 50-50, that would be a 2% increase, not 4%. So, okay. This 4% difference does represent 93 million. And so here, this is already the first mathematical mistake. They're assuming 4%, which is the total difference between the female and male players. And while they should be looking at 2%, which is the 50-50 they would be getting if the market contribution of female and male players would be equal. Number one. So anyway, 93 million fewer female players than male. Okay, that is fair, that is accurate, says senior analyst Katie Holt here. Amazing. The company's research found that women tend to prefer narrative-driven single-player experiences over competitive multiplayer games, with 18% of female players surveyed saying they played The Sims 4 in the last format. Okay, The Sims, if you don't know exactly the story of The Sims, at least the story that I'm aware of, is that it was created specifically because the daughter of one of the developers, I would need to double check this, but this is what I heard, that the daughter of one of the developers wanted to have a Sims game, one of these like early, SimCity, city building games where you can be the family in the game. And that's how SimCity, the idea, was created. And now here I'm not 100% sure, but I think the daughter had some also contribution, creative contribution into the game, initially at least, with some of the ideas. So that would kind of make sense. You have a girl in your family, she wants to play family, unsurprisingly. The game The Sims is created, and yes, it has a very strong female following. When given a list of 52 console, and PC games and asked which ones they played, there are 3 titles: Animal Crossing, New Horizons, The Sims 4, and Roblox. This one's quite interesting. I'm actually surprised Roblox is so high on the list. Had more female players than male. Conversely, when given a list of 50 mobile titles, 13 had more female players. So we are already going down here a little bit on this, like 48% to 52%, which is a very misleading average. And then we look at the graph, okay? Let's see, we look at the graph here. What do we see? Console gamers, substantially more male players. PC gamers, again, substantially more male players. Smartphone games, now this is where it starts getting a little more interesting. But again, noticeably more male players. Now I'm gonna move a little bit. Tablet games, or tablet gamers, more female players, but as you can see here, not by a lot. Now that is obviously very, very important, because they're trying to make this point like, oh, it's 48 to 52%, but when you look at the graphs, when you look at the splits themselves, that is actually not the case. There's very clearly more male players than female players overall. And yeah, so this is one of the other things. Then they start going into that there is a subset of female non-gamers who are interested in gaming but lack education. That is kind of very misleading, and also fairly sexist, to be honest, because what do you mean female gamers are non-educated? I'm sorry, what? The main, I think this sentence here is way more important. it concludes then that the main barrier to entry for someone isn't a lack of money or time, because as we know now, women have substantial income and are contributors to a lot of entertainment markets, in fact. So yes, it's not a lack of money, it's not a lack of time, but the lack of games with themes that appeal to them, and a gaming culture generally that does not appeal to them. These are fair points, and these are one of the very few fair points from this article and the original study. Now, the problem I see is basically everything else in this article. Like, I'm going to skip this education part because it's not so very important. But this part is, I know people have been dunking on this one. I've seen other videos where people have been dunking specifically in this sentence, and I disagree actually, because this is very relevant. In my experience, I do see overlaps with other forms of entertainment, with TV and movie. Specifically, women enjoy romance, drama, and lifestyle, unsurprisingly, significantly more than men. And here is one of the core mistakes that I see repeatedly among consulting firms that look only at like single individual statistics. They don't look at combined statistics that you could potentially derive from the themes in individual franchises, which basically would be the thing below here, the graph below. I'm gonna add it here in a sec. But basically, pairing these themes, so we're talking about romance, drama, and lifestyle, with popular game genres and themes like puzzle or simulation, no. If you pair it with simulation, that's an instant out, unless we're talking about SimCity, The Sims, or kind of like life simulation. But here's the thing. You are mistaking these two unrelated genres, unrelated themes, with the overall game genre. So with The Sims, as an example, it's not that the game is a simulation that's the important part. It's that it's a simulation and you get to build a freaking family. That is the core. It's the entire gameplay experience that is relevant here, and that they are critically overlooking in the study and in a general understanding of audiences. And this is basically why consulting companies like this one, I mean, not specifically this one maybe, but in general consulting firms, and all of this kind of like statistical meandering, why in the end it leads to the failure of the gaming industry. And it really does, because you see other initiatives like DEI, for instance. I'm not talking about DEI in hiring, I'm talking about DEI in game content. These are constantly failing flat on its face. Then there are bigger initiatives, which is basically what this company did, but like extrapolated and almost psychotic, I would say. It's called Bridge. There's another VTuber called Kirsche Verstal. She did a couple of videos on Bridge. I will link one of them in the video description so that you guys can have a look at it. Basically, a lot of these consulting firms, they push all of this like statistical analysis to such an extreme that it's almost antisocial. It's like you're trying to consider every single individual, every gamer to just be a number. You're no longer a person, you're just a number. And while these consulting companies, as I said, one of the goals is furthering social justice, in the end, what the companies, what the investors, what the corporate is interested in is numbers. They want more money. And they see all of this and they think to themselves, this will make more money. But it will not, specifically because of this genre mixing that they are constantly failing at. And so let me just see at the rest of because there was a couple of things I kind of wanted to highlight also in this study. No, sorry, that is pretty much the rest of the study. What I wanted to highlight here is specifically what I said already, which is the mixing of the different genres. And I think this, basically this comparison here is in the end extremely telling and is the main reason why, let's say, what was the last 3 months female gamers, which of these games are more popular among male gamers, among female gamers. Now, that's the reason why I said puzzle and simulation is not merely about kind of like that aspect of the genre, it's about the general combination. FC25 is a simulation game, but it's also soccer. Soccer is not going to be more popular with women, okay? This simply does not work. So taking the approach of making your existing franchises more appealing to women does not work. It has been proven many, many times. It simply does not work. And I wish these consulting firms would just stop, because they're really, or rather maybe take financial or legal responsibility for misleading companies and selling all of this kind of weird information, and in the end driving these companies into bankruptcy, driving studios into bankruptcy by making a product that is not fundamentally going to appeal to anyone. I don't think I have any other posts that are super relevant here. But basically there's a bit of statistics here as well, which is a little more accurate. This is from Capcom, which shows that in fact the majority of their players are 82% male to 14% female, and there's also a breakdown in terms of like what girls, what in the world and in Japan is more interesting to women, for instance, and there's also some division here. And also I have like a separate one here on Nintendo Switch, where there's like a, and this is the thing, you know, because Nintendo is actually a really good company, even though according to these stats, it seems like a lot of their like the majority of their players are still male. I know for a fact that at least in Japan, Nintendo Switch is an extremely popular console among female players, and for instance, that's where they play Animal Crossing, and that's why all of the Animal Crossing games are so immensely popular on the Switch, because of the female gamers. But one thing that Japanese companies, which are not using all of this complete brainless DEI bridge and other like hyper mathematical analysis, they're just using like a simple split in like age demographics and kind of like male female demographics based on existing titles, very, very important. That's one of the reasons why they're more accurately able to predict their audiences, because they know for a fact we have a lot of women playing Animal Crossing. What is great about Animal Crossing? The animals, the wandering around, the making friends, small mini games, fishing, growing crops, maybe cooking, things like this. Again, you are combining a lot of different themes, and then you are making another game that has these like 3 or 4 themes. Instant success. If you now try to make, I don't know, like a Star Wars game or a Lord of the Rings game that is about cooking, and you still keep murdering orcs and fighting and war and other stuff that's very clearly appealing to males, not going to work, okay? This never works. And again, I wish these companies would stop, because they're either lying or they're just misleading, unintentionally, but still misleading. And to just give you, I'm not sure if I have this actually, just to give you a taste, what happens when a game tries to appeal to both male and female audiences, it ends up pretty much like this. So this is one of these gacha revenue kind of graphs here. I think this one's pretty good because the demographic they've tried, they've kind of question. This is like a total revenue so far for a lot of different banners in Wuthering Waves. And as you can see, Cantarella here is at the very top. Shortly behind is, now unfortunately I don't exactly know, don't remember what this character is called in either Japanese or Chinese. Then we have Lynette, also very high. God, I forgot her name again. Augusta here with the red hair is number 5. There is, yeah, I'm not very good, unfortunately. I'm mixing up. Ria is the Japanese name of the character. is already lower. But if you look at the graph itself, do you see where the male characters are? The one at the bottom here with the green hair, and then another one, and the one that came out recently on the latest banner, Luke, and also Brandt, the two guys from the bottom. Do you see what kind of percentages are we talking about? We're talking about 11% and barely 3%. Even though I have to say Luke's gameplay, because I've tried him recently when getting back into Wuthering Waves, his gameplay is pretty good, pretty cool. I actually like it. But in terms of like, if you want to make a game for girls and boys, and the game itself is very clearly appealing to men, I'm sorry, you're not selling it. You're absolutely not selling it. Something like Love and Deep Space has a way better chance of making, and it's making tremendous amounts of money, to be honest. I mean, I'm not sure if you've seen, I think it might have still, yeah, it's probably still outpacing Genshin. We need to check. But it might still be outpacing Genshin in revenue. This is how crazily it's popular around the world. Love and Deep Space, yes. If you're into losing a lot of money and you're a girl or gay, yeah, please go give it a try. I honestly don't recommend it. It's very parasocial. But anyway, that is it from my side, and I see you guys in the next video. Mata ne!